Hi, this is Jeremy Kellett, Director of Recruiting here at Oakley Trucking. I'm your host for this podcast. This is the Oakley Podcast, Trucking, Business, and Family. And this is episode 143 that we're doing today. And on today's episode, we are talking tires is what we're doing. We're going to talk with Mr. David Covington, Fleet Solutions Sales Manager with Goodyear. And we're going to get a little more detail in, I know you may think it's hard to do an episode on tires, but I get a lot of tire questions from drivers wanting to know more about it. And we're going to talk a little bit about like the availability of certain sizes, the effects of pricing on tires, some of the main materials tires are made out of, which may surprise you. Just a little bit how it comes back to tie it all back to independent contractors, of course, is what we like to do here on the Oakley Podcast. So we're going to do that with David Covington here in just a second. But first, let's get an Oakley update sponsored by Arrow Truck Sales. Arrow Truck Sales has been in business for over 60 years and a longtime partner of Oakley Trucking and the Oakley Podcast. Trey Visor and Keith Wilson do a great job at putting you in the right truck to fit your needs and our needs here at Oakley. They carry all makes and models to choose from with on-site financing through transport funding. So whether you are a seasoned owner-operator or a first-time buyer, be sure to contact Keith Wilson at Arrow Truck Sales at 573-216-6047 and tell him you heard it on the Oakley Podcast. So basically the Oakley update is a Mid-America Truck Show update. It's I know I've done it before, but make plans to attend the Mid-America Truck Show in Louisville, Kentucky. It's March 31st through April 1st or 2nd. I'm sorry, I don't have the exact dates, but it's the end of the month, and it's that Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And we'll be there like we always are about every year. We got to have a booth set up. We're actually going to be recording a bunch of episodes of the podcast there. So come by and try to get on the podcast with us. We're going to be doing a bunch of that. We're going to have dispatch there. We'll have operations guys there. We'll have recruiters there. And we're going to be answering a bunch of questions, giving you all the information you need to know about Oakley Trucking. But really want to encourage our owner-operators to come. It's always good every year. They hang out at the booth with us, and they end up doing some recruiting themselves and just talking to people. And it works out to be a great opportunity for everybody. We're also going to be running PSPs, which a lot of y'all don't know what that is, but the drivers that have a CDL, if you got a CDL, we can run your PSP, and it tells you all the roadside inspections you have had in the last 3 years. That's always interesting to do, too, because a lot of people don't think they have any, and then we run it, and how'd I get that? So anyway, keep that in mind. Mid-America Truck Show, the end of March, 1st of April, Louisville, Kentucky. Be there. All right, let's talk tires with Mr. David Covington. Hey, David, if you would, how you doing this morning?
I'm doing great. How are you, Jeremy?
I am good. I appreciate lunch. I forgot to even thank you for lunch you bought a while ago.
Well, hey, Goodyear paid for it, and it was pretty good. So I appreciate you offering, even though you kind of drew back there at the end.
Well, I had those alligator claws, let you grab it first. I appreciate you driving down and doing this episode because tires are a critical, important component of a tractor trailer.
Correct.
And I think sometimes we take it for granted. I know I do, just on my vehicles. I take tires for granted, because they're always there when I need them. Matter of fact, I've got a excuse me. Matter of fact, I've got a commute car that I just took to my mechanic last night, and he's putting new tires on today. And for the last 2 weeks, I've been driving. This thing's been pulling to the left, because. Long story, my son bought a new tire for it when he was using it, and the other three are wore out, and we changed sides on it. Well, it pulls that way now. So I'm thinking it's a bad tire. And anyway, I took it to that guy to get me some new tires today, and because you don't realize it till something's wrong with them of how important tires are. And I would like to, take this episode and talk a little bit more about tires, specifically tractor and trailer tires, that you're knowledgeable with. But before we get into it, tell us a little bit about yourself, if you would, maybe your background, so our listeners kind of know who's talking here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate you guys having me in here today to talk about some of this stuff. But I've been with Goodyear I'm on my 20th year now, and it's all been on the commercial side. So all having to do with truck and trailer tires, not really much on the consumer side, but I've enjoyed it. I've learned a lot. You learn something every day when it comes to tires. There's something that somebody might bring up that it never crossed your mind until it gets brought up that day, and you do research on it, and you're like, man, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And it could be something simple. And most time when we're talking simple, we're talking something like air pressure or something like that. So, but yeah, I've got about 20 years here, and I've loved most of it. So it's been pretty fun.
And you live?
I live in Springdale, Arkansas.
Okay.
So was in West Memphis, Arkansas for a while. Recently, I guess within the last 3 years, my wife and I and our family moved up to Springdale. Great country up there, beautiful mountains, streams. It's just a real nice place to be.
Well, yeah, from West Memphis.
Hey, we had bayous and the river and stuff in West Memphis.
I guess so.
I can't say a whole lot bad about it. That was home for a long time.
Right.
I got a lot of nice folks there. So
that's good. So you got a family?
Yeah, I've got a wife, been married for 300 years. 27, 28 years. High school sweetheart. Met in West Memphis on the West Junior High football field, and just kind of been ever since then. That's been the love of my life, and hopefully she's felt the same way. I think she has. I've managed to hold on to her for a little while. So I don't think either one of us going anywhere after 20-something years.
No.
So we're just stuck.
If you do, you're going with her.
Yeah, one way or another. But now I got 3 boys. Youngest one's 15, oldest one's 26. My middle son is in the U.S. Navy, so proud of him for that. And yeah, that's about it.
What do you do on your off time? Spare time?
I try to fish and golf as much as I can. Now, I am not a good golfer, but I love playing. Okay, and some might say I'm not a good fisherman, but I love fishing. But if out of the two, I'd probably say I'm a lot better at fishing than I am at golf. But I do enjoy it. So
well, good.
But other than that, my wife and I we, especially during spring and summertime, we do a lot of exploring on the weekends. We'll go out and see waterfalls, trail hiking. As you can see, I'm not in the best shape of my life, so it's not a long trail.
Right.
But we go do some exploring from time to time.
Yeah. I'm in the same boat with you on that. My wife likes to go do that hiking, and I make sure it's not too terribly far because
Yeah.
I have a maximum limit there on how far I want to hike.
Yeah.
She's talking about wanting to go to Grand Canyon this summer. I'm like, okay, now let's set some boundaries here. I'm okay with going there, but I'm not walking there. I'm not walking the whole Grand Canyon.
Well, see, I lucked out.
Wear me out the first day.
I lucked out on that one because my youngest and my wife, neither one of them care for heights very well. So they just don't like being too far up if they can see what's down there below them.
Yeah.
So I don't think I have to worry about the Grand Canyon or any of those other long hike places.
All right, let's talk tires, man, for a little bit. I think I want to educate our listeners and me on the get a little more in depth of tires. You got some great notes there, it looks like. Mm-hmm. I guess we can start out with the availability of tires, because we went through a spell there where we couldn't get any tires.
Right.
Especially the size we use, 24.5s on our trailers, was very difficult to get. What does it look like now?
Now we are rebounding, and to find out how we got to where we are, we have to kind of go back. Sure. When hit your major manufacturers, they shut down for about a month, maybe a month and a half. Well, what that did was that caused the dealer supply to use their current inventories instead of constantly getting a shipment from these tire suppliers because they weren't being made. So everybody kind of blew through whatever they had in inventory for the most part. Now, as that lifted, or some of the restrictions lifted and so on, plants started moving back to production, but you still ran into the issue of you were so far behind that you were playing catch up. Okay, and one of the main things that we have to take into account is that you have I think in 2022 it was 27.7 million units tires were sold. Okay, and that was a record year for tire sales. In 2023, I think it's forecasted at 29 million. So it's going to be even higher than that, and it's supposed to level off around 24. So you should start seeing it kind of level off a little bit after, 2023. But you're still looking at record sales.
That's because they're building their inventory back up.
They're building it back up, and trucking, as most people know, during the pandemic, trucking was getting it. Trucking was still hauling hard, and with tires not being available, well, it was sucking up some of that supply. So we're playing a lot of catch up on that, and 20% of the transportation industry, 80% of the transportation industry is 22.5 size. That's a low pro 22.5 or 11R 22.5. So most of your production was geared around that 22.5 size, as you still have, instead of having 24.5s or some of your mixed service fleets running a 315/80 22.5 or something like that. So they had to shift the production to take care of the largest portion of that segment, which was the 22.5 size tires.
Right, 80% of the business.
Yeah.
I understand that. So that's part of the reason 24.5s were slow coming around.
Yes.
Are they good? Are we good now on 24.5s?
The simple answer to that would be no.
Okay.
We're getting there, and I say we as in tire suppliers, because you will have this issue with all suppliers, because you also had some transportation issues from tires coming from overseas or wherever they're being manufactured, getting hung up at the ports, not getting offloaded in time. So all that had an effect on the overall tire supply. The 24.5s right now, they're available, but they're not nearly available as what they were, before pandemic.
All right.
So it's getting back to that supply, but it's slow and go.
What affects the price of these tires? I mean, I know we were talking at lunch about how they went up and kept going up. I mean, is there an end to that, or they're going to come back and be reasonable, or what? How does that look?
Well, I'd say mostly it's, of course, just like everything else, supply and demand. But then you have your raw material cost, and we can go over some of that here in a second too.
Sure.
That affects the price of a tire. Transportation cost, of course, affects the price of the tire. Most of it's, once again, starting to level off. So we may, I can't sit here and tell you that there won't be a price increase in 2023 on anybody's tires, but we may see a period of time to where since that level off has happened, it might kind of remain steady.
But it shot up, 2021 when?
Yes, it started.
Then it shot up again.
Yeah.
In last year.
Yes, sir. It's been on a steady rise. And if I would have thought about it, I would have brought a price index to go over with you. And be honest with you, I didn't even think about that. But it shows
you can send it to us, and we can put it up there for sure.
Yeah, I can definitely do that. So.
Yeah.
But I'll get that out to you. And you can see from the graph, it'll show just a steady tick
increase.
Up. So, but that, inflation, everything comes back to affect the price of a tire in one way or another.
You think it'll level off a little bit? I guess it depends on maybe the raw materials. We can talk about the main materials that go into making a tire.
Yeah, and that should happen now. And that's what I was saying a minute ago, is that for the most part, raw materials have leveled off. Now, that's just one component, because you still have, transportation still not leveled. You got fuel. You got, I mean everything else. But as far as your main ones, petrochemical based products are probably your main ingredient, and that's your carbon black, your synthetic rubber, fabrics, and other rubber chemicals. That makes about 46% of a new tire. You also have...
Say that again. What makes 46% of a new tire?
Petrochemical based,
okay,
which is oil based. So that's your carbon black and your synthetic rubbers and other rubber chemical types that come out of that same petrochemical. That's the majority of your tire. That's almost half of your tire. Okay. The other ones are an agricultural base, which is your just your natural rubber. Okay. From rubber trees. Then you have a metal base, which is your steel wire, bead wire, steel rods, zinc. That's about 18%. So with agricultural being 36%, zinc, the metal base being 18%, by far the largest percentage comes from the petrochemical side.
Wow. So when you say petrochemical, is that like the price of oil affect
Yes.
that?
Yes.
Okay. Oakley Trucking is a 100% owner-operator company. We specialize in hopper bottom, end dump, and pneumatic trailers. We provide the trailer free of charge, and you provide the truck. We have a large customer base that reaches the whole United States as well as parts of Canada. Our owner-operators live anywhere from Texas to North Carolina to Pennsylvania to Wisconsin and everywhere in between, and we get them home weekends. We take it seriously when you join Oakley Trucking because we need you to be successful. Oakley offers great benefits and competitive mileage pay, so you know that when your wheels are turning, you're generating money no matter if you're loaded or empty. We understand that you want to make a good living and that you make our living. We only take on independent contractors, and to be honest with you, we are very particular on who we lease on. You must have a good driving record, good work history, and clean, dependable truck. So if you're interested in Oakley Trucking or just want some more information, you can go to oakleytrucking.com, listen to our weekly podcast, The Oakley Podcast, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
And that's, almost everything hinges on the price of oil because there's a oil component or some sort of petrol component that's in most everything, whether it be plastics, tires, microphones. I mean, there's stuff in there that's got a petrochemical of some sort in it.
Okay.
And so that's probably why it's the main driver of that.
Yeah, you wouldn't think that, that's really good numbers right there to know what a tire is made of. You just wouldn't think of all of that goes into it and what it depends on to price a tire. I mean,
well, and that's also why a lot of your companies, go with retreads. I don't want to turn this into a retread commercial, but by going to a retread, you take out a large portion of that because you already have the casing, which is what your cost is coming from. So now you're just paying for that extra rubber that goes on top of it. And that can be a whole nother segment for you.
Oh, so the majority of is the sidewalls.
Your casing,
or casing, I guess you call it.
Your innards, I guess you can call them.
Okay.
Because then the rubber just goes on top. Now the rubber itself still has those same products in it, but if you look at the size of a tire of a 22.5 or a 24.5 in your guy's case, I mean that's a lot of ground to cover compared to what the tread covers. So one of those ways to reduce that cost is eliminate the casing costs that you're not paying for because you already own it and you're going to put a retread on it.
I see.
So, and that's why you always hear it all the time that it's cost efficient to run retreads versus new tires, in especially in larger fleets. But that's also up to the independent owner operator how he wants to operate his business.
Right. So. Which we encourage. We don't encourage retreads. I mean, we do some on the front axle of some of our trailers, but you should go back and listen. I did a podcast with Toby.
Okay.
And we talked about retreads along with other stuff. I forget what episode that was, but because he was talking about he actually goes and looks at the retreads, and at the plant wherever it's made up here in Russellville or somewhere wherever we get them. But he goes and looks at them. So it's very interesting, which is a good segue into the difference between a high cost tire and a low cost tire. I mean, and everything. I mean, there's high dollar fishing rods, there's cheap fishing rods, but you can catch a fish with both of them.
Yep.
But what about the tires? I mean, is it one of them deals where you get what you pay for?
In most cases, to put it bluntly, yes. But in some cases, it all depends on what you're looking at as far as what you consider your cost or what you consider high quality and low quality. If you're looking at an overall acquisition cost compared to just a frontline invoice cost, then yes, you're looking at how long that tire going to run? What's my cost per mile going to be? If it wears out faster, is that going to increase my downtime? Is that casing that's on there, since I'm not retreading, am I going to be able to sell that casing back to someone else to get a discount on my next set of tires? Because somebody be able to use that casing for a retread. So you have to look at all those factors. If you're just looking at the frontline invoice cost, then I'd say it's up to the individual what they can afford or what they feel comfortable with. Most of the time, your higher quality like everything else, is going to have a little bit higher cost.
Right.
But that's where you're going to get your larger return on investment. The ROI is going to be larger on that, because if you're not retreading, you can sell a premium casing back to somebody.
And probably a lot of that just comes from experience, of the, hey, I've used these tires, then I know I've been getting good life out of a set of these. I'm going to go with another set of these. I think a lot of guys probably look at that. I do that on my vehicle.
Well, and you would be able to tell. I mean, because I could tell you, okay, an Endurance LHS steer tire is going to get you on average, 180,000 miles on your truck. But if that's a test that's not done on how you drive, the terrain you drive, and where you operate that vehicle, and the application you operate that vehicle on,
True.
Then those mileages are going to mean nothing to you. You could get more than that. You could get significantly less than that, depending on how you drive and where you drive compared to where we tested these tires on a line haul fleet.
True.
So,
True.
But all that comes into play with it.
Yeah, which most of them want to know, if I'm going down the road, interstate, driving miles, because how long they going to last, how many miles am I going to get out of them?
Yeah, and that's just something that the driver would have to.
So they have to make that
know.
decision. You go in, they need a tire. I mean, it's you got from $250 to $500. I don't know. I'm just guessing there. I don't know.
You probably got from $300 to around $650 now.
Yeah, $300
nowadays,
to $650 to choose a tire.
But you are having. I mean, if you're buying, we get a lot of foreign tires that get introduced into the market, and it helps at the price point, on the invoice. But if you're buying two sets of those, we'll just call them less expensive tires. Okay. I don't like using the term cheaper, but if you're buying two sets of those less expensive tires a year, and you're buying one set of your more premium brand a year,
like Goodyear,
then yeah, I mean, if you're paying $550 for that Goodyear steer, but you're paying $350 for that foreign brand steer,
right.
If you have to buy two of them, then you're $700 compared to $550, so you're already in the hole.
Right.
It just didn't hurt you as much on the front end.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, which a lot of times, I mean, we're human nature of, hey, right now, what's it costing me right now?
Exactly.
I understand.
We all suffer from sticker shock. I mean, that's
isn't that the truth? Which kind of answered our next question. How can we maximize lifespan? I mean, maybe not. Let's. I mean, I bet you got some tips on getting the majority of the life out of a tire, whether it's steer tires or drive tires. What's your suggestions on telling our our owner operators what they could do?
The biggest is just one phrase: air pressure. Air pressure is probably with every fleet is probably one of the biggest issues you run into as far as tire not being properly maintained.
So how many pounds, are we talking?
It
makes a difference.
It depends on the size.
Well, makes a difference. Like 5 pounds gonna make a difference in wear on the tire? Or?
Industry standard is if it's 10%, then the tire is considered flat. So if you're running, and we'll just use 100 to make it easy for calculations like myself.
Me too.
So if you're running 100 pounds in your steer tire and you check it and it's at 90, you're 10%. So you're technically, that tire is flat. Now, that don't mean that it's got a hole in it. That don't mean that it wore out. It probably means that the air cooled over time and it dropped it down. But that's also why you have to constantly check your air pressure. When you check your air pressure, you have to check it when that tire's cool. You don't run all day, get home and check your air pressure, because it's a good possibility that tire that you're running 100 in might have 125 in it by then.
Oh, really?
Because that heat builds up over time, which increases the air pressure. And if you let that air out to get back down to 100 because you think you're running overinflated, well, when you wake up the next morning, you got 80 pounds in it because it's all cooled and went away. So definitely check your air pressure first thing when it's cool. Don't let the air out of a tire when it's hot. Just let it cool down. And if you need to adjust it while it's cool. Because the same thing on the other side of that, if you check it in the afternoon and it's only got 100 in it, that means you probably ran about, when you started, it was probably around 75, 80 PSI.
It was low.
So it was low when you got it, which means that there's probably going to be some sidewall or casing damage in there somewhere if it's run too long like that. But, yeah, overall maintenance, alignments.
I see all these. Sometimes I'll be out here looking at these guys' trucks, and I'll see this cupping in their drive tires, and I'm like, man, how does it even do that? Wear it out in one spot, and not the whole tire. I mean, what are they doing wrong when that happens, David?
Well, and it's not actually something that they might be doing wrong or a way they're driving that affects. I mean, it could be as simple as the suspension needs to be maintained a little better, or they got a spring on the back that's about to fail, so it's causing issues, or I mean, it could be a number of things. It's all maintenance related. I couldn't sit here and tell you, okay, well, if it's got a dip, without a doubt, it was caused by this right here. I don't know if there's anybody that can tell you that.
Well, I guess you think about it. I mean, if you think about, 8 tires back there most of the time, I mean, running side by side, and that's it's going to be hard to keep them to wear at the same depth all the time. I would think would be hard to do that unless, I mean, everything is
believe it or not,
lined up.
Believe it or not, most of them should wear within a couple 30 seconds of each other.
Okay.
That creates another problem if you have, say you have a truck that you had a flat tire, a blowout on, all right, and you replace one of those tires. Well, if you replace that with a new tire and you've had those tires on your truck for a while, and there's more than 30 seconds difference in the tread, it's going to eat that new tire up because it's going to put more strain on that tire with the higher tread depth. So it possibly would fail you before one of the other 7 do.
Well, now, dang it. Y'all created that, so I'd have to buy 2 new tires, didn't you?
I can tell you what, I'm not smart enough to create that. So that's
But that'd be the smart thing to do. I mean,
yeah. Well, a lot of companies now are starting to use what we call a match meter, and it gauges the overall diameter of the tire. So if they have a bunch of used tires, they'll write on there, 7, 8, 9, however they want to calculate it, and they know that they have to mount those. When they mount those on a unit, they have to match them up because you'll get the best life out of your tire doing it that way.
Buying a used tire.
Well, no, just if you're like we'll say Toby out here, for example. I'm sure Toby's got some used tires that he pulls off a trailer. When he puts those back on, Toby knows a lot about the tires. So, I mean, he'll match those as best as he can with each other to make sure they run as true as they can. You're probably not going to find one on your guy's lot that's got a inside tire at 12 and an outside tire at 4.
Okay.
That's just not how Toby operates. So it's probably going to be within, if that one's at 10, then it's not going to be plus or minus 4 that's beside it.
That makes sense.
Lube Zone is open a new location in Statesville, North Carolina. It's located north of Statesville on Highway 77, just west of Exit 59. Lube Zone services both single trucks and truck fleets, so whether you're driving through or you have a trucking company nearby, Lube Zone are the experts to turn to. Lube Zone's specialty is full-service oil changes that take approximately 30 to 40 minutes. They also offer tractor-trailer grease, gearbox service, generator service, reefer service, and DOT inspections. They also go the extra mile when it comes to quality control. What does that mean? That means your semi-truck is checked not just once, but twice to ensure all service and parts are good to go. Lube Zone does this so you can rest easy knowing that your truck is in top condition. No other service center knows semi-trucks better than Lube Zone. Check out lubezone.com for all their locations, and when you go in there, tell them you heard it on the Oakley podcast.
But that's another way to help with abnormal wear on the tires. And, once you get a wear pattern in a tire, people probably told you your whole life, all you got to do is flip it or, move it to another position. When you get a wear pattern started, it's there. You really can't do anything about it. You might be able to slow some of the wear down, but in some cases it might even speed up if you flip it or move it to another position. So they're not designed to run like that. They're designed to run with a smooth footprint.
Are those air things that they put on their wheels to, what is that called? Centromatic? No,
Centromatic's the balancers.
The wheel balancer. No, it's the
talking about the auto inflators.
Yeah. Is that something that's a plus that you recommend?
I would say yes. If you're not checking your tires pretty constantly, or because they keep it at a steady pressure, and if there is a leak or something, most of the systems nowadays will let you know, hey, we're constantly putting tires or constantly putting air in this tire in this position. So they can be a little expensive to start with, but it does take that need to constantly check yourself, check the air pressure yourself.
Right.
It kind of takes that out of the equation. So
all good stuff, man. Good questions, David. I haven't stumped you yet because I don't know.
Either that or
I don't know much about tires.
Or I'm filling you with some good bull. One or two. So.
That's part of it. When you're this fleet solution sales manager, I mean, it's got to be something.
Name says it all.
Name says it all. Is it? I put this question down there and sent it to you because I thought I really didn't know the answer and still don't know the answer. But when it comes to selling tires, do more tire is the commercial tractor? Is that a bigger business than the regular automobiles? Do you know?
I couldn't tell you exactly. I mean, you got millions of cars on the road.
Yeah.
But I can tell you that the trucking industry or transportation industry, it's.
I mean, they go through
huge.
more tires. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you'll run through where a car might have a set of tires on for 3-4 years.
Yeah.
Most of your trucks, just because of the mileage that they're running, I mean, they might make it a year and a half. Some, depending on, some of the regional routes that they run, they might go through, 2 sets a year.
Yeah.
A mixed service, trash company or something like that. I mean, they might go to 2 or 3 sets a year. So that's kind of hard to say. I wouldn't want to give you an answer because I don't know 100%.
Yeah.
And I don't have numbers to back it up. So.
Well, I don't either. That's something everybody can just Google, I guess.
Yeah. Google will tell you everything.
But I just know, I was thinking about that when I wrote that down, that, man, there's got to be the transportation industry goes through so many tires, just one after the other, where automobiles don't. I mean,
you'll say in the industry, now if you talk about as far as on commercial, okay, just that segment, which includes your mixed service, your transportation, and all that, then yes, they probably use more because they got more Class A trucks. So Class A trucks have more wheel positions, in turn, are going to use more tires.
Yeah. I think you're right. We didn't even touch on, and I didn't put this on the notes I sent you. What about, before we wrap it up here, what about super singles? Is that something that is popular much, or is it declining? I know, when they came out years ago, that was like the thing to do there for a little while, and then it seemed like it's kind of faded. I know a lot of our owner-operators don't have them. We'll have a few that do, but a lot of them seem to steer away from them. What's your thoughts on super singles? Since
you didn't include those on the notes and I didn't have time to prepare, I'm going to refuse to answer that question.
Okay.
No. Yeah, super singles, they were designed to kind of help lower the weight. So anybody that's a weight-sensitive fleet have mostly changed to super singles. What you're seeing now is that a lot of them are starting to convert back, either due to availability or the issue with having one position running instead of a set of duals running. Personally, I think if you have a super single, if you have a flat tire, you're down. All right, there's no limping in. Where if you have a set of duals, you might be able to nurse that a little bit to that next exit without damaging the wheel. Because then you're looking at, if you do that with a wide base tire, you're looking at a $600-700 wheel on top of a $1,000 tire. So it can get pretty expensive.
Do the super singles last longer?
Once again, it depends on the application. Yeah, you have some locations or some fleets that are hauling them on like a liquid bulk or something like that, and if they're running straight routes, up and down the interstate all the time, not many turns, it could possibly last them a while.
Now you said that, I see the Loves come in and out here. Their trailers seem to have them on there.
Yeah. Well, once again, it's if I lighten my load on my equipment, then I can get more fuel on there.
Yeah.
So that's if you're not in I'm gonna step out on a limb. I would say, me personally, this is an opinion before anyone writes it down as fact. If you're not in anything that is very weight sensitive, like liquids or fuels or something, or some of your I guess, some of your flatbed operators, I would really not see the benefit of a wide base over a set of duals.
Okay. Fair enough. You heard it from him, Miles. He said it.
Yeah. Oh, I'm going to get 15 calls. What do you mean we can't run super singles? That's not what I said.
What opinion flashing on the screen?
Yeah, there you go.
That's a disclaimer.
Yeah. So last thing, I always like to tie this stuff, whatever we talk about, back to independent contractors and how this conversation can benefit them. And I think you touched a little bit on it earlier when you were talking about what they need to consider when buying tires. But I mean, what do you think an independent contractors? I mean, what part do they play in the tire business, and what would you recommend them to look for when they go to buy a set of tires?
Well, first I would say that the independent contractor, I mean, they obviously play a huge role. I mean, most of the industry we have today in some form or fashion was built on the independent contractor. Very important to the industry, very important to our transportation supply network as a whole. So I'm a big time advocate for the independent contractor. I like to try to do as much as I can to help them. One of the things you and I have talked about is the independent contractor pricing for Oakley. I'm currently reviewing that due to some of the price issues that we've had over the last couple of years. To put it simple, it kind of got out of whack, not where I wanted it to be. So you'll be getting something from that or something around that before too long that you can distribute out to everybody. But they just, independent contractors, that's you own that piece of equipment. That's your business. You have to look at that like, what your return on investment can be on that business. And that's when you need to go back to what we were talking about before. Is the cost, is that first-hand invoice cost that I'm going to get on that lower price tire, is that equal to or better than my overall acquisition cost that I might get on that higher end tire? And most of the guys are, they've been doing it long enough. They figured it out. Hey, if I run set X of tires, I get this many miles, and it costs me this much. If I run this other one, I get this, and it costs me this much. So most of your guys can pretty much, for the most part, know about where they need to be as far as their tire cost, fuel cost, how much fuel they're going to use a month or a week or whatever. So I think most independent contractors have a good grasp on that. I would just, once again, stress the maintenance side of it. Maintenance is just not just with tires, but everything in general. It doesn't take long for a $300 maintenance project on a truck to turn into a $3,000 maintenance project on a truck.
Yeah, for sure.
So upkeep and maintenance is probably the best thing that the owner operators can do.
Yeah.
To keep their equipment healthy and keep making them money.
Well, when a set of tires costs what it does these days, I mean, it's one of the biggest expenses independent contractors have.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
After their fuel and their maintenance on a truck, I mean, tires is a big expense, and you got to actually plan to buy a set of tires. And if they're doing it every year or every year and a half, it's a big expense that they got a budget for and plan for. So
well, and I would say that everybody likes that loyal customer. They do. We love customers that are loyal to Goodyear. Other tire companies will love customers that are loyal to them. But when it comes down to it, you have to don't just. I guess just because you've done something for a while or stuck with something for a while, it doesn't hurt you to step outside that box every now and then and see if there's a better option available, whether that be with Goodyear or whoever. Mm-hmm. You might find that it surprises you from time to time.
Well, yeah, got to do your homework. Yeah. As an independent contractor, you want to do your homework, and Absolutely. I got a feeling our guys do their homework. They know what maximizes their profits.
Yes.
David Covington, Goodyear Fleet Solutions Sales Manager. Man, I appreciate you coming down here and doing this for me. I think that is some great information for our independent contractors, and I really appreciate you doing it.
Well, any other time that you need somebody to just sit down and think of words to say back to you without knowing what they're talking about, let me know, man. I'll jump out here.
We can do it. We can do it.
It was my pleasure being here. Anything I can do to help, I'm always available.
Thank you a lot. Hey, and just like every week, I appreciate you guys listening to the Oakley podcast. You have made this thing better than I ever thought it would be when we started, and I really appreciate you. So be sure and check us out on YouTube. If you don't watch it, if you just listen to it, you might check us out on YouTube and watch it. And when you do that, subscribe, like, comment. Let us know what you think, too, about the podcast and anything else you want to hear. And once again, we appreciate David, and we'll talk to everybody next week. Thanks.